All right. Well, hopefully everybody can hear us. We look forward to
Yes.
providing this nice little Facebook Live. We're definitely excited to get everything rolling and discussing the hidden secrets of recovery. And the big thing that we really want to start off by saying it's definitely more than what individuals always think about, and that's what we really want to target today is talking about these specific matters and how we can address it and keep moving to grow yourself and grow your empowerment of fitness and wellness. Perfect. So we're going to start off by asking the question. So if you're watching this, you're watching the recorded version. What does recovery mean to you? So pause the video and think about what this actually really means to you. So there's a lot of different meanings behind the word recovery, and we really want to talk about the portion of fitness and wellness. Depending on what professional that you talk to, they might think about recovery as more of the rehabilitative approach, kind of coming from pain and coming from an injury. But we really want to take things in a different level. We really want to see the superior efforts going into the whole entire body rather than isolated at one specific point. And what I mean by one specific point is maybe the knee joint is just had an injury, but we really want to grasp the concept behind fitness and wellness, but around the whole entire body. So really kind of think about how we can improve the regeneration, the longevity of your life by utilizing appropriate recovery strategies and techniques so that you can make your body run a lot better than what it's doing now.
All right. So, kind of going off of what Dane said, we're looking at recovery as a whole. It's not just one piece of the puzzle because we all know our bodies, and we've heard this from a million different professionals, our body is connected in every way, shape, or form here. So, think of our body as a chain. And when one of those chains gets a little loose, it breaks sometimes, and we do have an injury. And yes, that is one facet of the recovery process is recovering from an injury, but we want to look at the entire chain as a whole, making sure that this one break or one leak in the chain doesn't trickle down to other aspects of the body. We need to look at it as a whole again. Yes, we need to fix the one part, but as we continue through that, we need to make sure that this doesn't break down somewhere else in the chain. So having a well-rounded recovery program is going to be optimal for just total body performance, total body health.
And kind of to add a little bit more to that is, everything is connected. Our bodies are wired to survive, and survival should be the biggest thing that we are focusing on. So when we talk about each one of these links later on, we want to make sure that we have a good grasp of each one so that we don't have the chains breaking. Each link should be strong and it should hold and support each one of you.
And with that, each chain helps each other out. So when one is missing, the other one starts to get neglected too. So we want to put these chains and links all together to create that well-rounded balance for you.
So I really want to read this statement. So this was in John Berardi's new book, The Changemaker. So when we look at this, let me read it. I really want you to think about what this really means and kind of decipher and how you can utilize it to better your life and better that recovery cycle, recovery plan. View the process as a cycle, not a one and done thing. The minute you stop cycling back and refining your thinking in any aspect of your life, is the minute you stop growing. So that statement right there is so powerful. It really thinks about the process that we always are on the verge of learning. We really need to kind of go back, fine tune things, and think how we can elaborate and bring the power of the mind to grow the life. Our recovery is always on a cycle. It's always changing. It's changing from every 6 seconds to every 6 minutes to every 6 days to every 6 weeks, every 6 months, every 6 years. Your body goes through these different types of adaptations from the current responses that are happening on a daily thing. But again, like we said, 666 all the way through. Your body's always going to change from minutes to seconds to days to months to years. So always have a growth mindset. There's so much out there, and we need to take it all in so that we can have the process of cycling through it, but always refining when we get to a point so that we can grow.
And I think with that too is, research in the field itself is continuing to grow too. We need to grow with our researchers, always coming out with a bigger, better way to help this recovery cycle. So we need to be on board with growing in that sense as well.
So I just want to give a little bit of introduction to myself. My name is Dane Bartz. I'm currently a PhD candidate at Rocky Mountain University. I work with the NSCA by doing things for clinics and presentations, and then also for their advisory board. Also with the Pain-Free Performance Specialist certification with John, a great individual when it comes to just the power of movement and overall understanding pain-free movement. But I'm the CEO of Linked Fit. It's a pleasure to be, providing this recovery information for everybody so that you can provide this and bring it into your life. But my big thing that I really want to kind of provide when I'm talking about my little slide here is proper preparation prevents poor performance. And that meaning means so much. And that is why it's one of my biggest things in my bio is we need to obviously have that opportunity to neglect the poor things that happen in life. And a lot of things can happen in life, and that is going to impact the way that we recover. But if we can take the time to preparate our body for the upcoming demands, although they might not necessarily be known at the moment, they might be unpredictable, but let's take our best opportunity to prevent that poor performance so that we can get to a better opportunity of results and goals that we are trying to achieve.
All right, guys, I'm Alex Bartz. I am a director here at Linked Fit, and I spent a lot of my time going through nutrition and wellness strategies. I'm kind of looking at, like I said, more of the wellness, nutrition. I also am a certified yoga instructor, and I love that just overall wellness aspect. And one of my favorite quotes is the "Don't Quit" poem, and part of it is when things seem worse, that you must not quit. And with this, and looking at it from a recovery standpoint, is we do have things or those chains that break in our daily routines or whatever it might be. And being able to recognize and say, hey, something has triggered something, but I can't stop. I have to keep pushing forward. We have to make these corrections. That way we can continue with whatever journey you are in. And we have struggles, we have ups and downs, we hit bumps in the roads, but it's always about getting back on track, whether it's the next meal, the next day, always getting back on track to find your way back on whatever path you're reaching.
All right. So the next thing that we are going to talk about is one of our very first slides within this presentation was talking about the chain, talking about each one of these links. And now that's what we are going to talk about. We are going to discuss those hidden secrets, those hidden traits that many times people don't think about. And let's actually talk about these links and see how we can actually apply that into your life so that you can take these and roll with it and apply it to your current situation and practice to be superior in whatever you are doing. So the first thing that we really want to talk about is always the opportunities to have superior health. So when we go into each one of these aspects, health is going to be your number one thing. You want to make sure that your body is going through the psychological components, the physiological aspects, that your joints are healthy. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth, but we really want to talk about the number one thing always should be your health. Second, we really want to talk about the stress. Unfortunately, with society today, and I know everyone knows this firsthand of currently what's happening, but stress is a huge indicator to how our bodies operate. And we live in this world of high stress, but this impacts the way that your body operates, the way that you think, and the way that your mindset is at that particular moment. And we're going through these stressors on a daily living. So we want to make sure that our second thing that we're paying attention to is going to be stress.
Next, we have nutrition. And this is just putting the pieces together again, how we can utilize nutrition to help the entire chain as a whole.
So the next one is going to be sleep. This one's so critical when it talks about just getting your body to reset. and taking that time from the fatigue and you're being tired. But sleep is that fourth one that we really want to discuss because it's so important to how we can actually get the body to recovery and rejuvenate and regenerate from the stressors that are happening. Last one is going to be the training. So the training is so superior. And when we talk about our fitness portion to what we want to talk about, and training can go a long way. But we really need to have that understood because of the fact that recovery is always on a continual base of cycling. It's always going in a continued effort between the health, the stress, the nutrition, the sleep, and the training. So once we get a better opportunity to keep these an elaborate cycle, but making sure that we're paying attention to them will definitely help out for future things. So our first one that we are going to talk about is that health. Health is so critical in the world that we live in. We need to make sure that our health isn't necessarily just the only thing that we're paying attention to, but it should always be the priority thing. So it always should be the number one thing. You have to be healthy in order to body to operate. So we know that injuries happen. We know that things can happen within pain. We know that potentially high blood pressure is one of those things that can happen. But make sure that when we are focusing on our health, that you want to get better. So many different types of medical practitioners are out there, professionals that are leading the way with research and ways that you can apply it to make your body operate more efficiently. And it's not necessarily just the physiological components, but it's the psychological components. We are always talking to ourselves in our head, and I laugh about that, but it's a good thing. We need to communicate. We need to communicate with others. We need to communicate with ourselves as well. So health is always going to be the big thing about priority.
And I think performing regular assessments with yourself and starting to take log of how your body operates. Because we always tell people, listen to your body, but what does that actually mean? So I think as someone who is kind of in the back end, you're like, okay, I need to pay attention to what's going on in my health. So what does that mean? Start journaling. Journal things that are unique, something that, hey, this is a little bit out of the norm from what normally happens to me. So I think performing those regular assessments with yourself and bringing them to someone's professional's attention to be like, hey, do you think this is something that I should be concerned about? Whether that's getting your physical, just your regular annual checkups, but having those regular check-ins with yourself and just kind of keeping track and logging will be really helpful for your ultimate health.
The next one is going to be about stress, and this is so big. Stress is one of the leading things for a lot of different diseases and illnesses. And it's because of the releasing of the body and the hormones and the other different types of neurotransmitters that happen specifically at the moment when your body goes through a high stress situation. And when we talk about this, get a little bit of a science background, we can talk about the autonomic nervous system. And when we look at it, we can look at the parasympathetic, and that's going to be your relaxation area. So when your body is more in a state of having the opportunity to be calm, to be centered, to be holistic, these are the areas that you want to get into. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the training environment too. But unfortunately, with the world that we live in today, there's a lot of research that supports we live on a very sympathetic area. We live on the right side of the screen, but we need to take the opportunity to learn how to de-stress. What are the things that we can do to manage the situations that affect us the most?
And I think a lot of it comes down to mindfulness of your life. I think we think we live in a very parasympathetic world, but when we really take a look at our lives, we're always on the go. We never stop and take a break, or when something happens, it's like, the end of the world is happening. We're always in that state of stress, and finding ways to be mindful and to manipulate this to kind of find a balance. That's the ultimate key, is balancing this out. We should be in a sympathetic period of life at some points, but we need to dial that back down to find that kind of happy medium there. And Cohen kind of taking a look at nutrition. There's so many different facets in nutrition, but ultimately what I want to kind of engage with is forming habits, finding a routine that works for you, because what works for me might not work for you necessarily. So finding a rhythm that is fitting to you and your needs. That's what's most important, is since this whole recovery is such a broad spectrum, you need to find something that works for you. Whether it's going into a training session, post-training session, just daily living in general, we need to make sure we're getting an adequate amount of nutrients. I know everyone wants to eat, low calorie or whatever the new diet trend is, but that doesn't ultimately work sometimes. And it's not very sustainable too, as we're trying to make this a longevity thing with recovery. So finding appropriate nutrients that work for you and making sure we're getting those in on a regular basis, involving yourself with lots and lots of whole foods. Yes, we can have processed foods, but again, it comes back down to that mindfulness factor and making sure we're having that balance between what goes in versus what we are expending out to make sure we're having appropriate amount of nutrients coming in here. Especially when we look at the recovery, making sure we're having lots and lots of hydration, post-training protein, carbohydrates afterwards, antioxidants. All these factors will help go into and play with that nutrition to help you fix those links in the chain here.
And another thing that we want to talk about, it's another addition to the branch of nutrition, is the supplementation that can exist between distal recovery protocols. And supplements are definitely a good way to kind of approach things. But as Alex mentioned, she really talked about the whole food operation. So we really want to have a good grasp, mastering the basics first. So when you are thinking about potentially adding a supplement because you think it's good for recovery, such as a whey protein, but think about the basics first. Let's think about those whole foods because those are where everything originated from. So even if you think about the supplementations and all that, where did it originate from? It gets originated from the operations and the synthetic portions from whole foods.
And with that, with supplementation, it is what it is. It's meant to supplement your diet. And that goes just for nutrition in general. If we're only focusing on getting foods from X, Y, and Z, we tend to miss out on a lot of other nutrients, other benefits from the rest of the food out there. So use supplements sparingly. And like I said, if there's something that you need a quick fix for, sure, grab a protein shake. Hey, I'm not going to be able to eat right after my workout. Use those supplements to your benefit. But like I said, they're there to supplement you. They shouldn't be your primary source of nutrients. Because like I said, there are a wide variety of nutrients out there from the different veggies, fruit, whatever it is. And if we're only consuming just the supplements, we tend to miss out on a lot of other nutritional factors.
So the next thing that we are going to talk about is going to be the most important one, kind of in a way. We all love to sleep, but let's make sure that we are prioritizing the quality and the quantity of our sleep. So, I've heard this a lot and be like, I sleep a lot. Like, I sleep my 10 hours a night. That's great. Like, I love it. But what's the quality of that sleep? Is it restless? Are you actually getting up all the time? Are you going to the bathroom? What are the things that potentially can impact the way that your sleep cycle will be efficient or non-efficient? So there's a lot of research that does support 8+ hours a night is going to be great. And I know that the age range will be different for those individuals, but let's make sure that you're prioritizing that sleep pattern. This is your body's opportunity to not necessarily completely shut down, but shut down in the way that it now only has to focus on that particular session for the body. And it needs to rejuvenate. It needs to replenish everything that basically has gone throughout the day. And I'm not saying it doesn't do that when you're in the middle of your day by eating and everything, but now it can be more efficient with it because your body now is at a parasympathetic state from what it was previously throughout the day. Because any single time that you are moving, any single time that you are going through your daily activities, you're going to be a little bit more on the sympathetic side. Your heart rate's up a little bit more. But now when you're sleeping, everything calms down and it's your time to relax and shut your mind off so it can do a little bit. But again, like I said, it doesn't completely shut off. You can't really shut off the brain. There's only one way to do that. And unfortunately, no one wants to do that.
But I think a lot with sleep too is, a lot of our recovery does happen during sleep. But with that is finding practices or routines with your sleep that are going to keep you consistent to make sure you are getting not only, the quantity, but the quality of sleep. So getting yourself into an actual bedtime routine, whether that is, setting a temperature for your room, getting the blackout curtains. Screen time is a really big thing too, especially right before you go to sleep. Turn your phone off. I know we use them as alarms, but have a set timer. Hey, phones go off at this time. This is when I start to get myself ready for sleep, because it is such an important factor since a lot of our recovery does come from sleep. And those bedtime routines can be really helpful ultimately with that recovery process.
Yeah, and it's really about building habits. Alex mentioned building these healthy habits for nutrition. Yes, that's great. But each one of these links is the way to build further habits into the practices that you need to do. So make sure that when you are going through every single one of these cycles previously, it's building the habits that are going to be superior actions for you. So make sure that when you are developing your goals, be smart with it. Have organization, have structure, be specific with each one of those. But it's about the habits that come with sleep. Get into a routine. Unfortunately, we know with society today, we are, I don't want to say addicted to our cell phones. We're addicted to these mobile
We're addicted.
devices. But make sure that we have these opportunities to spend time with loved ones. Take your mind off of the outside world and be one with yourself holistically. Bring everything into a center of opportunity so that you can relax further, not necessarily reading a book, maybe just literally spending quality time to get your body relaxed at that specific moment.
And, not this is to do with sleep necessarily, but it's kind of those self-care practices. And it all comes back to, I say it a million times, a broken record, that mindfulness factor. There's so much more to recovery than just, yes, right after the training session, which we'll get to in just a second, but it's just that overall balance of life. So find that kind of peace of mind and doing those self-care practices to help that body recover.
So the next thing Alex talked about, it's going to be one of my favorite things, but how can we actually implement the training programs to benefit your favor, to have recovery protocols that are superior in action, to make sure that you are getting the adaptations and the strengths and the weight loss and the faster sprints that you're looking for. And I know everyone's goals are going to be completely different, and that's perfect. We want them to be completely different from everybody. We know everyone. I'll give Cliff Harsky a shout out on here. He mentions that everyone's a snowflake. Everyone's a special snowflake, and each one of these snowflakes are different. And it's a great way of expressing the opportunities that everyone is unique. Everyone has different bodies. Everyone has different personalities. Everyone has different ways of thinking. So make sure that if you kind of look at that analogy, we know that a lot of snowflakes are totally different from one another, looking at the patterns, looking at the positions. But now when we talk about our training, we really need to get into the grasp of our protocols. And here at Linked Fit, we love to talk about our ways of pre-training protocol, during training protocol, post-training protocol, and after training protocols. And this is all specifically developed for our recovery. And it's a cycle. It's always the things that we need to be working on. And now we'll talk a little bit about what these protocols mean for each one. So when we talk about pre-training protocol, it's the ways that we can program from the assessments from each one of our individuals. And we know that there's a lot of methodologies out there. There's ways that we can actually prescribe and program training to bring on the adaptation that you want. So it's not always just doing high intensity every single time. It's not always doing the same run every single day at the same intensity, at the same level, at the same heart rate. Our bodies need to go through different standards of intensity and volumes so that we can bring on superior results for the long run. So think about the pre-training as the way that you can pre-plan something for recovery before it even happens in the long run. Operate your body, organize your body so that you have a better grasp for it in the future. During training protocol for recovery. Now this is more about the opportunities to look at recovery and the ways of that specific training session right then and there. So you might have heard, I'm doing a recovery day. Well, I'll say it bluntly. What the hell is that? There's many different ways that we can look at it. Depending on who you talk to, these can all change. But it's depending on how you operate the first one. It's how you actually look at the pre-training protocol that's going to impact the way that you do your during training protocol. So it might be a lower intensity day just because maybe the 2 days before that, it was very high intensity. So that's not necessarily meaning you go into your during training protocol and that training session and you're lifting super heavy, you're getting your heart rate super high. It's a calm way of a take training, mobility, stretching out a little bit, foam roller. There's different ways that we can prepare that warm up a little bit differently. That's not necessarily most rigorous into that training session. But what can we do in the middle of the training session on how we program it to be the best thing so that when you go into your next training session, that might be a higher intensity day, that you are going to have the best results because now your body is better off. It's a benefit, it's a value because of what you did. You're now able to perform at a higher level because of that. Next thing that we will talk about is going into the post-training protocol. So each one of our training sessions, high intensity day, total pull, our big deadlift days, big bench press days, that's great. Keep at it. We want to keep up with that, a whole entire training regimen that you're going with. Keep up with the routine. But what are you doing right after that training session to put your body in a better position for the long run, for the next 12 hours, next 6 hours, whatever the case may be, so that you can be more relaxed and more parasympathetic when we talked about the stress. Stress is our big indicator. So it's the ways that we can operate our body to calm down. And there's specific ways that we can actually program for that. I love massage. I love stretching. I love mobility. Breathing is so superior when it comes to that. We can operate our heart rate. We can actually, a better way of saying this is we can control our heart rate more just by breathing, controlling your respiratory system, your breathing, your lungs in and out can control the way that your body actually regulates sympathetic activity versus parasympathetic. And of course, nutrition. Nutrition is a big thing that we can talk about. Well, we're going to talk about it a little bit more in the after one, which I will let Alex take that one away here in a little bit. So now it's the after training protocol. What are the things that we are doing, not necessarily right after a training session, but the hours after our training session, between training session 1 and training session 2, training session 2 to training session 3, training session 3 to training session 4. What are you doing in between that gap to make sure that your body operates better? And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And one of the big things, like we mentioned, sleep, handling stress, making sure that your health is there, making sure that you're managing any type of pains or injuries, and nutrition. So I'll let Alex talk about the nutrition.
Well, and with nutrition in general, like I said, use those nutrients, and we can kind of go into nutrient timing as well, as we need to make sure we're fueling our body for success. If we do not have the appropriate macro and micro, if I can talk today, nutrients, we're missing out on things. And we need these nutrients as a whole to keep our bodies running optimally. And if we're missing anything out of that link, things start going a little haywire. We start to find those deficiencies, and our body has to find a way to get those nutrients from other things in the body. And if we're looking at those essential nutrients, if we're not getting those in after our training session, our body's like, hey, I can't perform this function anymore because I don't have the appropriate nutrients to do so. And yes, some of our body can make it, but other ones we actually need to get from our food. So making sure right after you are done training, have some form of protein. Get that into your body. Start that post-training nutrition right away. And hey, if you can have a nice big meal at least an hour after your training session, like I said, fill it with protein. Get those carbohydrates back into your body. Antioxidants, lots and lots of water. Water is like the holy grail almost here. Oh, there you go.
Water.
It's like the holy grail here. It's so beneficial for your body. It's a great way to keep everything in check and in line. And especially with that, dehydration becomes a really big component. And we never usually have enough water, let's be honest. So making sure we are getting all those appropriate nutrients in our body is going to be so beneficial for you.
But yeah, like we mentioned, the training is huge. You know, there's a variety of factors that will impact this. And the reason why we put it at the end is because we view the things before it as more critical in the process to recovery. And, you know, health is going to be the number one thing. There's reasons why many professionals out there, from healthcare professionals to fitness and health professionals, we manage our assessments and our consultations a little bit differently because we want to look at blood pressure. We want to look at ways that we can analyze the body through questionnaires and asking them questions that are more prioritized on the health environment. And when we talk about different stress, we want to know what different types of stress. And these will all impact the way that our body can operate specifically in training. So our big recommendation from here is when you are managing your training program, when you're writing it yourself, if you are a client, if you are a coach, operate these through a periodization, not necessarily always just staying at the same intensity, same linear fashion of always trying to get stronger. Your body needs breaks every once in a while. It might need a week of deload where you take things down a little bit by reducing it by 25%, 50%, depending on what you need as an individual. It's a big thing about really trying to reduce the potential burnout factors. These do exist. Overtraining
Yeah.
is a big thing for what we really like to believe is more of the psychological component. Our bodies get really, really sore. Yeah, soreness is definitely one of those things. But once we get to a point where we really can't handle it too much, we probably get to a point of overreaching that I don't want to say is above and beyond the repair mechanism, but it might take you a little bit longer to recover from that training session. So if you can manage all these things, it will just put you in a better mindset, a better grasp of life to make sure that you are performing the best way. And the thing that we always say here is link your potential with all these things that will help manage your body. So from here, training needs adequate phases of recovery and regular assessments to review individual stress tolerances. And the big thing that we want to take away from this right here, this sentence, it's the one that's literally in purple. It says individual. Each training program needs to be individual. Everyone's different. Everyone's that snowflake. So make sure that when we are trying to put your body in these different phases, know that life might throw you a curveball. Individually, you might have to customize it to what your body needs at that specific point. Regular assessments are needed so that you have to see where your body is at that specific point in time. Not necessarily just in a strength environment, but maybe in a wellness component, fatigue, stress, but individualize it so that you know where your particular alignments are for stress tolerance.
And with that, the individual part's a huge component, but we're always going through different phases of life. And what we did maybe 20 years ago, we may want to still do those things. Hopefully we still can, but you may be in a little bit different of a mindset. So you need to take into consideration where you are in life and how your body is operating to those particular stressors. And like I said, you always have to rearrange, go back to the drawing board and kind of keep focusing on that.
So the big thing that we really want to take away from this is we really want to get everyone in the mindset to train for performance. Not necessarily always just a factor of I want to lose weight. That is great. I love it. I love that you're trying to obviously be conscious of what your body is because there's a lot of research that out there that shows that correlations with body weight potentially are different types of illnesses and diseases and risk factors. But let's just make sure that we always have the mindset that we are trying to get better. We're trying to perform at something a little bit better. We're trying to get stronger. And there's so many ways to looking at there's so many different ways and avenues, but performance should be one of the big things. Train, not necessarily just work out. We want to train for something, train for a goal, train for performance, train for something that will give you the outcome that you desire.
Well, and we have one body, and this kind of goes in that whole entire well-roundedness is you have this one body, whether you're training for performance on a marathon, or maybe it's just performance to reach to the top of the cover board. We need to have those and those goals in mind and training specifically for your stage of life. Whether that, like I said, that performance could be anything and everything, but make sure we are training for something. Have the longevity here.
So another little sentence for everybody. It's because we really would like to provide these in there because it means so much. It means so much in the way that we can adapt to the ways that we're working with our clients, the ways that necessarily individuals are just programming for themselves. We know that everyone doesn't really have a coach. Someone might not have a personal trainer. But with the intention that we really want to provide for the summarizing and putting the why behind everything in this whole entire lecture is do not just crush your clients. Train intelligently by cycling through phases for the adaptation. So we know that a lot of times programs for particular gyms, training sessions with that client, coaches trying to get to the thing thinking that, the one training philosophy is the best way. Everyone's different. but make sure that we're not necessarily always trying to crush our clients, always trying to put them through a metabolic exercise that is going to burn the most calories. In this phase, in these cycles, in these micro cycles with your training clients, program a way that not necessarily every single training session is going to be superior in that calorie way of burning. Make it for them. Make it for the way that you need it. And knowing that every single volume is there for a reason. You know, you went heavy on a Monday. Tuesday might be a moderate training session. You're still training on Wednesday, but it's a lot lighter. It's a lot easier of a training session. That might be the daring training protocol by going into a recovery day. But don't have the intentions to crush every single workout, always being angry, always having the opportunity to break PRs. These cycles will help you reach PRs at a different avenue, a different cycle for each one of them. So train intelligently by including these phases, because these responses from training sessions are going to make sure that you get the adaptations that you want.
And I think coming from a coaching standpoint is we want to be client-centered. Your clients are coming to you for help. Your goal is not to leave them walking out feeling worse than they did coming in. Your job is to make them leave feeling better and better every single time. This is why we want to have a great workout. That's awesome. Like I said, your client needs to be able to function and recover from that session every single time. And every time they walk out that door, they feel better because you are helping them. This isn't about you. This is about your clients. And I think getting outside of that ego of, oh, I'm the best trainer because I can get everyone these, that's awesome. But your clients need to see those benefits and see those results from recovery as well.
So a big thing that we want to talk about before wrapping up is our recovery cycle clinic. So here at Linked Fit, we have developed a clinic that's all geared towards very similar things that we have talked about, but of course, more in depth. So this is going to be a 6-hour clinic, and we are talking about all these things from a pre-training protocol, talking about our different ways of post-training protocol and how we can program more efficiently for our clients. And not necessarily just for our client's sake, but if you are just a fitness enthusiast or just someone that wants to learn more about recovery, this is the perfect clinic for you. So feel free, check out our website, www.link-fit.com/RCC, Recovery Cycle Clinic. Another thing, we really want to provide the opportunity to give you guys, for any viewers here, on these clinics, you're going to get opportunity to use this code LIVE25 for $25 off of that clinic. So we look forward to seeing anyone that registers, and hope that you take this opportunity to expand the mind, expand the practices, so that you can live a rejuvenated life, to recover with cycles, so that you can make sure that you go into every single training session and be superior, but not necessarily just training sessions, but life in general, to minimize the stress, eat better, make sure that we're sleeping good efficiently, but make sure that the training programs and your health is in line as well.
And like I said, we break all these things down into all their little components, giving you as much information as we can here. But thank you guys for tuning in with us. If you have questions in particular about anything, reach out to us in any one of these. You can call, email, find us on Instagram, find us on Facebook. We are always here to help you answer your questions, because there's a lot of stuff out there. So we want to help you break down what's right for you. Reach out to us anytime.
See you guys.